Hi friends. So before I come to the topic of this vlog, let me start off by telling you why did I choose history as an interest area? Why are there so many books on history that I have in my bookshelves? Well, very simple. It's the word his story as per me. It's a bunch of stories, and there is nothing more interesting that we humans do than telling stories. And stories that are real are far more exciting and have much more twists and turns and plots and subplots than anything the human imagination comes up with. Okay, I know immediately a lot of you would say, no, yeah, we remember history from school, it was extremely boring. If we just take off those glasses of that bias that we built in our school times, because we were told history in the most unbelievably boring manner in our schools, in our NCRTs. Okay, I mean, just ask yourself, did you not love Game of Thrones? Now, supposingly, we were to start off, imagine how Game of Thrones is to be taught in schools. So, which episode, in which this thing, which how much duration was this battle fought, or this king, what was his motivations? Write a 3-page essay. My God, Game of Thrones would look like a torture to any teenager, right? Now imagine if I was to tell you that world history and Indian history has stories far more profound, has characters far more exciting than anything GOT can ever produce. That would captivate you, right? This is my attempt in the next few vlogs here. Now, for me, that is what history always was. I discovered history by chance in school in 8th class when I got some book on Hitler's field marshals, and I started reading how each of these field marshals was planning their attacks. I was hooked as a boy reading these war plans, and I could not get enough. I could not get enough of World War II. And it has been a passion since then. I've read hundreds of books on World War II, everything from the German angle, from books, any book I could find on Hitler, to the French side, to the Russian side, and what is happening there, to Stalin, to Churchill, to the American war effort, everything. It was unbelievably amazing. How Rommel was planning the attacks, what is happening in France, all of that. And then I went on to Napoleon and unbelievable battles. The Battle of Spain, the attack on Russia, the winter of Russia, what all happened was unbelievably exciting. You see, it was a very interesting journey that I followed. You see, I have to admit, I had a very basic bias that anything that was interesting was world history. And I went to world history and I started with modern world history from Hitler and Napoleon and the Russian Revolution and the Soviet Russia and the Cold War. And then I went to medieval Europe. I went to medieval England and Henry VIII and Queen Elizabeth, and then I went to Frederick the Great and the German side, then Peter the Great and Catherine, and I read all of medieval European history. And then I discovered the Roman Empire, the Greeks, the Spartans, the battle with Persia, and then to Alexander and the Persian Empire, and then I went on to the Egyptian Empire, anything I could get on. So it was a reverse process. And from there, I accidentally discovered Indian history. And I discovered books written by Indian authors which talked about a much more colorful Indian ancient history. And I realized, where was Vikramaditya and Pushpamitra Shunga or Lalitaditya in our history textbooks? And then it was such unleashed excitement in my eyes. There was so much to learn. And then you keep here, you read about Hemachandra and you read about Bappa Rawal. It was unbelievable. And then I discovered the whole Mughal history. There were books after books, and there was such unbelievable characters. I mean, one can spend lifetimes talking about characters like Jahangir. One, there is such abundance of unbelievable characters in Indian history, and that's where I discovered all of this. Today, I start off in the topic that I raised, and definitely one of the most fascinating characters anywhere in world history. has to be the man called Aurangzeb, and that is why there are so many books that I have on him, specifically on him. I'm not even talking about other larger Mughal histories and or travelogues and all, etc., written by people around him. I want to specifically talk about books on him. So, I mean, why Aurangzeb? Okay, before I begin that, I just want to showcase to you. I mean, I have read, I have pointed out a couple of best books that I found in him. One is this book called Shahenshah. This is a recent bestseller, very thrillerly written, very exciting, very literally like a paperback novel. Must read for anybody who wants to actually feel it, like as like a fast-paced action book. There's another book by a foreign author. Okay, this has its good points. And it is written. The only problem is it is written by a foreigner, and when foreigners write it, I somehow feel that some of the nuances of problems that India face and Indian challenges were not captured as well. Though the person is trying to do their best to capture the enigma that is Aurangzeb. But my favorite, and this is one for people who are really interested, is this book. So this person, okay, uh, Jadunath Sarkar, he wrote 5 volumes on Aurangzeb, okay, and they were comprehensive. But then he realized that very few people would be able to read 5 volumes, so he made a fantastic effort of condensing 5 volumes into this book himself, and it produces the most exhaustive book on Aurangzeb that I have read, and it captures so many facets of him and the people around him, and characters like Shivaji and the Marathas, etc. It is unbelievably fascinating. I strongly recommend this book to anybody who really wants to understand not just Aurangzeb. And I want to come to this part. Why is Aurangzeb so exciting and so relevant? You see, it's very simple. You want to understand today's issues and you don't want half-baked opinions. You need to understand what this man was. This man was probably the most influential man, like it or hate it, in the last 500 or 100 years or 800 years in India's history. The twist of history that was produced, that his elder brother Dara Shikokh, a man who had translated the Upanishads, some say, to Persian, the man who was trying to bridge cultures, could not become king, and rather this man, who was much more hardline, was made king, changed India's histories forever. It was a battle between assimilation and breaking up. Had this man been not so radical, there may not have been a resurgence of Hindu retaliation. There may not have been those powerful Marathas and Guru Gobind Singh and the Sikh rebellion and the Jats. Had that not been there, probably the third battle of Panipat would never have occurred. Had that not happened, there is no way a foreign power like the British would have ever conquered India. What that India would have looked like, I don't know. Would have been a consolidated India or split into multiple kingdoms? Would it, the communities been able to live happily ever after? I cannot tell. But definitely, this man played a huge role in what happened over the next 300 years. It is absolutely clear that without Aurangzeb, there could not have been the British Empire. This man, once you understand him and what was going on there in real time, you understand all the events that followed, including the partition of the country. You understand the thinking, that clash that was between Dara Shikokh and Aurangzeb. And once you understand that, you really understand a lot of the issues that are going on today. This man changed India's history. It is left to wonder what would have happened if Dara Shikokh had become the king instead of Aurangzeb. It's, I mean, without at any way producing any value judgment, I just see him as one of the most unbelievably exciting characters of Indian history. And when I read these books, I found, so much of history is shaped up by personal issues of people. A man whose father, Shah Jahan, unbelievably loves his eldest son so much at the cost of all other children. It's a story of him also loving his elder daughter Jahanara more than the daughter Roshanara, and how the two kids who feel that they are loved less connive and try to topple the government. So, as more and more Dara Shikokh moved towards assimilating the two cultures, this man went in the opposite direction, out of, maybe some would say, out of spite for his elder brother and his father. And how those personal feelings of family intrigue made the man, and that made India what happened to India over the next so many years. That is intriguing. I can tell you one thing, there is nothing that I have read in fiction or watched on Netflix that can come close to creating the unbelievably exciting character that is Aurangzeb. You can read umpteen number of books on him and yet come out being amazed at what was happening. You see, the pinnacle of Mughal power was there. The entire country had been conquered. And at this time, this man thought, I would complete the task left incomplete, completely conquer all of India, and not only conquer, convert it in his way of thinking, in his radicalized way. And his action led to, by that time, there was just a small Maratha force, a few forts. I mean, the Marathas were nothing. But his aggression produced more retaliation. And the last 25 years of his life, he did not come back to Delhi. He was stationed right there in the Deccan, deciding that his life's work is to finish off this Maratha rebellion. But when you read the last few volumes of this book, you sense it, that this man in his old age, in his dying days, in his 80s, as he was fighting battle after battle, in desperation. You see, this man was attacking forts and then they were again captured by the Marathas. It had become an endless cat and mouse chase. He sensed it, that his life had been a failure. He realized that what he set out to do is not be achieved. He somehow forebode that once he's gone, his whole structure of the Mughal Empire will collapse. In the north, the Sikhs were already beginning to resist all around the country. The more he tried to control with an iron fist, he sensed it, that the iron fist has produced a much stronger backlash, and the whole pillars of the Mughal Empire will collapse. As he fought on day after day in his old age without thinking of rest, you feel the unbelievable frustration of a man who has got an idea into his head and he does not understand why the Lord of the universe is not supporting him. When he has blind faith, he does not understand that the more he tries, the more he fails. And he senses that once he is gone, no one will have the kind of determination that he has, and hence all of this edifice will crumble. It is an exciting story of a man who wants to prove to his own father that he is holier than him. He is a man who, having felt slighted at being overlooked, compared to his elder brother, wants to prove, and in his proving, long after his father and his brother are gone, he bitterly tries to complete his life's mission. You see, in the end, a very bitter man, a man distraught, a man who feels that none of his sons or anybody is able to show the same kind of passion that he has, a man who is unable to understand that the more he pushes, the more the resistance becomes, and he forebodes that if he leaves this mission incomplete, and somewhere he senses that it will remain incomplete, his whole mission will fail, and that probably he has failed too. It's an exciting story of a man who, in his dying days, senses that he is not able to achieve what he wanted to achieve. It's an exciting story. As you go on and on, it become the character stays in your mind. You see, you start with the young Aurangzeb. You sense his growing radicalization. You sense his sense of achievement at having conquered, his defeated his father, defeated his brother, and then you see him towards the end frustrated, and then you realize that so much of what we try to achieve in life is not important. So Aurangzeb for me was not just about his impact on history, but I genuinely felt, and I realized from this book that one should not probably blindly make something the purpose of your life, because life is beyond that. What you can or should do is defined from above, and the more you try to push your way through, the more things crumble. Thank you.